With discussion in the National Hockey League around scheduling for next year, and Canadian teams saying we would like to play against each other more often, it's not that simple. And I don't think it's going to happen. You'd have to go to, I believe that would have to go to a Board of Governors vote. You'd have to get 2/3 to vote on it in its favor, and I can't see it happening. Now, keep in mind, you've got 7 other teams in your division, 8 other teams in your conference that aren't in your division, and then 16 in the other conference. So the question becomes one of, do we want the games in the conference to be more prominent than games with the other conference? And if not, you might as well get rid of conferences, which that discussion's been there before. And basically the way you could have this work is that you'd have it work like this year's playoffs. 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3 in the division, and then you just seed the top 4, or you seed the final 4 according to their points, to their record during the regular season. And then you could have a Boston-Toronto Stanley Cup final, a Montreal-Toronto Stanley Cup final. You could have any variations of a Stanley Cup final as long as they're not in the same division, which all of those teams are. So thanks for paying attention. So, rivalry games equal ratings. They also equal money. So as fans will be streaming back into buildings for next season, we'll be seeing a lot of buildings at capacity. Well, teams are going to want to charge as much as they can for tickets to try to recoup the losses they've suffered over the last year and a half. It'll be a year and a half by the time that rolls around. And there's no better way, let's just say from a Montreal standpoint. So these are 3 teams I'm just using as examples. You could have Arizona come in, Vancouver come in, or Columbus come in. None of these are traditional rivals. But which team can you charge more for tickets? You can charge more for tickets if Vancouver's coming in twice that year than if it's Columbus or Arizona coming in twice. And the argument is not to keep just Canadian teams playing against each other. I've seen people saying, oh, they just want to play against each other. No, that's not the argument at all. The argument is basically one of money. It's one of ratings. So Rogers would love it if we had some more Canadian teams playing against each other and more rivalry games. Rivalries are important. I think what this year's schedule has shown, and fighting being up 42% and all that, is that we do see more hate in these games, more fights, not just of the physical fighting, punching nature, but just the games feel more hotly contested when teams don't like each other. Now that we're up to 32 teams next season, if you have to have all 31 teams play in the other barn, and you have to have every team has to play in everybody else's arena, that takes up 62 games on the schedule just right there, just right off the hop. Because that's 31 teams in one, 31 teams in the other, because you have 32 teams altogether, right? So it's 62 games right out of the gate. And I think it further dilutes rivalries. I think it hurts that. So I thought, well, I'm just going to play around with numbers because why not? It's kind of what I like to do. So I thought, all right, if you did a 6-4-2 matrix where you play your own division 6 times, the other division 8 times in your conference, and 2 games against the team from the other conference, it doesn't work because you end up with 106 games on that schedule. So I thought, yeah, I don't think the players are going to go for a 106 game schedule. I think owners can be talked into it, but I don't think players will go for that. It would definitely help them recuperate a lot of their losses. And then I thought, okay, so what if it was 5, 3, and 2? So 5 against your division, 3 against the conference, and 2 against the other conference. You end up with 91 games that way. So the interesting thing is that you can kind of make this work for 76 games, for 82. You can try, but you're going to have things kind of be a little, well, not properly balanced unless you completely change things out and you make it how it was back when we had the 84 game schedule. The NBA seems to have, because I was looking at the NBA schedules of years past, they seem to have a schedule of 4 against your division, 3 against your conference, and 2 against the other conference. If the National Hockey League followed the NBA model, which they've done before, you have 4 games against your own division. That's 28 games because you're playing 7 opponents there. Three times you're playing against the other 8 teams in the conference. So you have 2 at home and 1 away, or 2 away and 1 at home. That's 24 games there, and then you have 32 games against the other conference. You end up with 84 games. So the NHL starting next season, I could see them going to an 84-game schedule. I think Pierre LeBrun tweeted that out like about a month ago, where he was like, yeah, they should go to 80, 4, 3, and 2. And so I looked at it, but I wanted to look at other things too. the other idea that I've always thought might be interesting. So let's say we're going to get rid of divisions, and you just go to conferences. You could have 3 games against every other team in your conference, 2 games against the team in the other conference. It ends up being a 77-game schedule, and then the other 5 games to make it to 82. You could have them against teams that you want as rivals, where teams could say, "Hey, we want Montreal to come into town. We want Columbus to come into town." And then you could work that over 5 other games, or big rivalry games as decided by the teams. If the NHL is going to change things with the schedule, so let's just say division and outside of division rivalries as well. So just using this as an example, you'd have 6 games against your rivals in your division, so that's against 7 other teams. 2 games against every other team in the league. You end up with a 90-game schedule. Doesn't really work. The one though, this is where I legitimately lean, but I know nobody else will. Nobody's going to agree with me on this because they're not going to like it. They're going to say, no, I don't like that idea. 6 games against every team in your division. So that's 42 games. And I understand people don't like how repetitive some of the hockey is right now, but that's 8 games against a team over a 56-game schedule. Yeah, that can get repetitive. I'm talking about 6 times over an 82-game schedule. Then you have 3 against every other team in your conference, and then 1 against every team in the other conference. It comes out to exactly 82 games. So you have 42 against your division, 24 against the rest of your conference, and then 16 against the other conference. It adds importance to those games in your division. It gives you greater control over where you finish in the standings. The one thing that bothers me about the idea that you have 41 home games, you're going to have 31 different teams coming in, is that it does take away that feeling that teams have a lot of control. Very often you're scoreboard watching, all right, we need them to lose and we need to win. In a situation where you're always within your own division, it's always kind of a 4-point game. And it's one thing I've enjoyed this year, and it definitely seems to add intensity to the games. Right now it's between the first and second period between Tampa and Florida, and the game's absolutely fantastic. And it has a completely different feel than the Pittsburgh-New Jersey game did this morning. Each division has had a chance to kind of create its own version of the game. Each division's playing a different style of hockey. And the Central, it seems to be mostly a lot of fun. The West had been very defensive. That seems to have kind of fluctuated recently. The North, very pond hockey-ish in a lot of ways. And then you have the East, where there's a lot of grinding defensive games. And it'll be interesting to see which team emerges from that. We don't have to give up one for the other, I don't think. I think you can kind of have both. I think you can have it where fans get to see numerous different teams. The one game against every team in the league just means that instead of seeing Boston every year, you'd see them every other year. And, I really think that could work, but I understand it will not happen. But I do think there's owners that would like to see it happen. Like, here down, in Vancouver or in Montreal. I am sure that Montreal would like to see an extra night of Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton, like Vancouver would like to see an extra night of Montreal or Toronto. The hottest tickets of the year in Vancouver are always the Toronto-Montreal games, right? Toronto's coming to town, Montreal's coming to town, and there's more fans for Montreal and Toronto in a lot of those cases than there are for Vancouver. Those tickets are very expensive. They go very quickly. And if you removed, say, New Jersey, and you just didn't have New Jersey coming in at all, but you had an extra game against Montreal, you can charge way more for those tickets, make a lot of money. And if the teams are making more money, the players are making more money, the ratings go up. It'll be interesting to see if the NHL does anything to maybe, get their revenues up a little bit in the coming seasons. I don't know how long it would stay that way either, because I don't know how many owners in the league you'd be like, hey, so, you haven't had Carolina coming into your building. I'm just saying Carolina, just an example. Carolina's not much of a draw. But we're going to take away that Maple Leafs game, that extra Maple Leafs game you had last year. We're going to take that away from you and give you that Carolina game back. Owner might not want that. He may not be all that interested. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do when the schedule comes out. I would think the schedule probably comes out in June. I would think June we'll know what the schedule is going to be in October. I don't think there'll be much of a delay. The NHL a couple months ago was already asking teams to submit the dates for when their buildings are available. And that's an issue that's always going to kind of be there too. Like an idea I always had was, now that we're going to have 32 teams, I always thought it would be nice if the NHL had more days where every team is playing, like the NFL. The NFL, it's just crazy. NFL on Sundays, it's insane. And from one day to the next, it could be completely different how the standings look. And it could just have these crazy fluctuations. And obviously, with the NFL, they have the advantage of a 16-game season. But I've always thought if the NHL had one night of the week, and whether they decide that's Saturday or whether they decide that's Thursday, and one night of the week where every single team's playing, and you had basically a matrix set up for the schedule to make that easier. And I know back in the day I designed one that was an 84-game schedule that had a matrix where every team was playing. And what that also did was it meant that there wouldn't be problems with one team playing 5 games over 10 days and the other one's only playing 2. And you don't end up with teams having these crazy schedules, comparatively speaking, with others. It's not easy, though, because, again, you have to have the building availability. But I know the NHL really likes what's gone on. There's no discussion of only playing in the division. That's not a thing. That will never happen again. This is a once in a history thing. This will never happen again. I don't even want to say century because I don't think it ever happens again. But it's been very interesting. And I think it has got some owners probably thinking we could make a lot of money if we change the schedule. So, yeah, there were a lot of different ways I thought about doing this, but I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Is it more important to have every team in every building? The one thing for me is that's nice, but it does make hockey sometimes really kind of a slog. You get into that January malaise, that late January malaise. The ratings drop. There's a lot of matchups people don't necessarily care about because you're 45 games into an 82-game schedule, and it just kind of sags in the middle. If you had more rivalry games, I don't think you have that problem. You can put some rivalry games into that, and I think the ratings would stay up, and I think the intensity of the games would stay up. Because there are weeks. You can see teams go through like a week or 2 weeks of the schedule, and they're just, it's not there, and they'll even admit, yeah, it's been kind of meh. But yeah, we got lots of time left. If they're playing against teams they hate, they might feel different. And when we have 62 games, because you have 31 other teams you have to play, and so that's 62 games of the schedule. That's part of what leads to the teams not hating each other so much anymore. Like, John Tortorella complaining about everybody being friendly with everybody. I have not seen that as much this year as I did last year. These guys are sick of seeing each other. You have to find that balance. You don't want them to necessarily be sick of seeing each other, but you don't want them to be all pally and chummy like, hey, I haven't seen you all year. How you doing? Great. How you guys doing? We're doing just great. Awesome. Then at the end of the night, they're high-fiving each other. Yeah, that was a great game. That was fun. Well, see you next year because we don't play again until whenever. And we're not division rivals, so this game may not feel as important to the fans, to us, to the broadcasters. See? I think it's important to have every game feel like it matters. And sometimes with 82-game schedules, that can be a problem. I know with baseball, 162 games, you have 20 games that don't feel important. So it's just, it's insane. But let me know your thoughts. What balance would you strike? Or do you just say, you know what? Forget it. Just get rid of divisions and just everybody plays either 2 or 3 times during the season. And that'll be that. And what do you think the owners do? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And as a bonus, do the new U.S. networks, which is right now ESPN, and likely NBC, though Fox Sports could get in there too, which entity that takes over that U.S. TV contract, do they end up with a say as well? Do they go to the NHL and say, we'd like more rivalries? We'd like more games we can sell because these teams hate each other. Can you hook us up in the next schedule? And how does the NHL, who desperately needs that cash influx, how do they say no? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.